A heavily contested issue is causing reverberations all across New York State. Data center owners are making moves to build in various communities across our region, including in the towns of Alabama and Tonawanda. But the pace is giving state lawmakers some pause. And just today, in fact, hours ago, the Assembly agreed on a bill to place a one-year hold or moratorium on any data center that's larger than 20 megawatts. It's expected to pass in the Senate later today.
That pause would allow officials to study its impact on utility rates, the energy grid, and the environment. We are joined now by Assemblyman Bill Conrad, who is in favor of this pause. Assemblyman, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Can you first talk about how big is a 20 megawatt data center? You know, this is anything bigger than that.
Correct. There are many what we would call super data centers that are being proposed that are essentially the same amount of energy that the city of Buffalo would use in terms of residents. 20 is obviously much lower. We're talking 300 megawatt to 250.
Bill, what is your best read on the pace of these data center owners wanting to build these structures here in our region? Because seemingly they're popping up. A new proposal is delivered to a new town or a new city every day. Why do you think people are pushing so hard for these to get built before the regulations are in place?
Well, I had the fortunate experience of going to the University of Idaho and taking an energy blending course this summer. And one of the things that the professors highlighted was the fact that particularly the Northeast has cheap land, it has access to water, it has also a colder climate, and that helps with the heating issues related to those data centers. So Western New York, as well as most of upstate New York, is a very attractive spot for these data centers to come.
In Tonawanda, there is plans to build a data center where the old Tonawanda Coke facility was, and hundreds of people showed up last night in protest of this. You know, what are your thoughts of that center specifically in the town of Tonawanda?
Well, I have to say that Tonawanda Coke site, I think a lot of us have a lot of trauma from the experience of working to shut down Tonawanda Coke and all the problems that came with it. And a lot of us early on in my career, as just a teacher and a community person, were active in that. But I have to say John Williams, who's the developer there, has kept an open door to us electeds and many others about the redevelopment of that site. I think he's taken on a humongous amount of money and time to, redevelop that site. That was, I think, one of the most toxic sites in the United States when they left. And I know he has not been hiding the fact, and he's defending his project. But what we're concerned about here in New York is the pace and, of course, the regulations that need to be propped up around these data centers.
Bill, I'm curious, obviously you are hearing from your constituents. As Kelsey just mentioned, hundreds showed up at a town meeting last night. There, I'm sure, was discussion in the state capitol today, preceded the adoption of this bill. What were some of the concerns that state lawmakers are sharing? I'm assuming they're sharing the same concerns of their constituents.
Yeah, I believe that there's a lot of back and forth on the conversation of, how much energy, water consumption, noise pollution. We've heard about that in North Tonawanda with the data center there, as well as spiking energy costs. As supply and demand is dictated by the market, more demand is going to dictate, a higher price. So there's a lot of concern around that. There's also some tax issues about data centers that goes back to a law when there was dial-up internet. And I think Niagara County's addressed that as well and is talking about it. On the other side, there were a lot of folks that have reached out, friends of mine, who are very much for this project. They see the job creation, especially in the skilled trades, and they see this as an opportunity or a lost opportunity if we don't proceed and go forward with a moratorium. I'm looking to set the pause. There were several bills up here that called for a 3-year moratorium. I'm hearing from constituents just to ban them entirely from the state. And, so I'm hearing from both sides of the aisle, and as well as both sides of opinions on this. But I think this was a nice compromise bill that gave us a time to pause, not a long time, but also put in some regs about a 3rd-tier system for costs. And then of course community benefits and energy efficiency to make sure that it has the right environmental impact for our residents. I still think that site is not necessarily a bad one for a data center. It's not a land that I would see reused for public good anytime soon with the amount of pollution that was on it. So, these are the brownfields that I prefer to see these sites, but there's other things going on across the state. And right now, the ISO, who's essentially the air traffic controller for our energy, is conducting a study because there's so many projects in the pipeline, and we're already hearing about the lack of energy in reserve for this summer, which we know is one of the peak seasons for our energy consumption with air conditioning and everything else going on.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that energy. There are articles out there from newspapers like the New York Times several months ago who have looked into this, that these data centers can really wear down on these already aged infrastructures. Is that something you're looking to look into over the next year if this is paused?
Absolutely. I might be a contrarian to some of my colleagues where I've been in favor of gas because it's part of our mixture to provide energy up here. And noting that, it's so important to realize that it is an aged infrastructure. There are a lot of dollars being spent to rebuild it, but it's 100 years old. And we have to invest in new technologies and things to make sure that we do that. And that's been a priority of mine since I've gotten in office. But it only is exacerbated, I think, by a number of things. I spearheaded the asking the governor to pause the All-Electric Building Act for the same exact reason. These are drains on the energy system, and I do not want to hear that we didn't have enough power for our constituents, and the costs are going through the roof.
Assemblyman Bill Conrad, we appreciate you spending some time with us, especially just fresh from the floor. These votes are taking place as we speak, so we appreciate it, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblyman.